boundaries, and you talked about learning to reject opportunities. Some might say, Dr. Shepard, that's easy because you're a doctor. You are presented with opportunities in whatever area and multiple times a day. People seek you. I don't know how many doctors are actively on LinkedIn applying. I've never heard of doctors being laid off. There's
that happens.
It happens, but it's not like something where you're like, yeah, they laid off 10,000 doctors a day. Awesome, everybody. Welcome back to a real episode. The CVMK experience, the CVMK show. You know what it is. Boy, CVMK 33, because it is what it is. I have an amazing guest. We're going to go back into what is man, but we're going to deal with the psychological aspect of Adam Man and his environment. So I invited a subject matter professional, a guru in the understanding of the intellectual dynamic makeup of this genome species known as mankind, the none other than himself, the Dr. Jonathan J. Shepard. And he's going to help us unpack this because it needs unpacking, because maybe the reality is we have some preconceived notions of what it is versus what it is not. And obviously, as I said before, if you are not a believer, as much as this does apply to you, you don't have to accept it. And I got to say that because sometimes we're like, I don't believe that. But the reality is, it's okay. I want you to believe. God knows he wants you to believe. You can be saved right now. But it is your choice. I love you, but we're going to keep pushing this Christian content, all right? So with that being said, everybody, welcome Dr. Jonathan J. Shepard. Dr. Shepard, how you doing today?
I am well. I'm part of the genome of man. Yes, sir.
Hey, look, we gotta bring the heat, man, the energy. So, I'm super excited to have you back on. It's been a while, right? I think we've been retooling and rebranding and trying to figure out how we're gonna do this. And I think I found my niche. I think I am the Christian version of Johnny Carson. That's how I see myself. Yeah, that mixed with like an Arsenio Hall, right? Very Arsenio-ish. Like 90s Arsenio, not now Arsenio.
Oh, yeah.
Prime Arsenio. So I like discussing things, so we're going to talk about, man, what is man, really him dealing with his own environment from a psychological standpoint, right? But I know there's some novices out there might not have heard, not might be as familiar with you and your work. So if you could just introduce yourself and then we'll get the party rolling.
Absolutely. Jonathan Shepard here. By profession, I'm a board certified child, adolescent, adult psychiatrist. I am currently the Chief Medical Director of Hope Health Systems, which is located in a suburb of Baltimore, Maryland, one of the largest mental health organizations that specializes in children and adolescents. And Cody may not be aware of this, but I recently received a huge promotion and will be taking my services to the District of Columbia.
Oh, wow.
I will serve as the Chief Clinical Officer for the Department of Behavioral Health for all of DC. And that will begin in August of this year, of 2023. So, yes, that's what I do my profession.
Oh, wow. Oh, DC. I got to give me some good professional news in my life. Look, I'm proud of you, man. That is amazing. I'm super happy for you, brother. Definitely want to give you your flowers. I don't think we do a good enough job celebrating others. And then when I know you're hard worker and it's so well deserved. And as they said, and I do hold on, if Jesus is in the neighborhood, you're next. So I feel like having you on the show, if that's happened to you, I believe I'm gonna get something real soon. And worst come to worst, I'll just apply for a job. Put you as my reference, like, hey, look, now that you're over it, you can hire me. We can skip all the 20 steps to an interview. But we're gonna get into it. We're gonna unpack this. But before I do, just a quick word from our sponsor.
There's a hero in all of us, waiting to be unleashed. All it takes is just that one last push. Activate the hero within with CVMK Global Supplements. All natural, steroid-free, designed to enhance performance, build muscle, and increase energy. You are unstoppable. You can do this. Become your own hero at www.cvmkglobal.store.
I'll go to www.cvmkglobal.store for all the best supplements I got with me today. The creatine I use, that's why it's a little worn, super thick. I take this with me to the gym every time I go. So you see those muscles? This is partly why. If you want to run for the general board, you could be the bishop that has muscles. That's going to get you at least one vote. Somebody going to vote for you one way. So if you want to run for president, you be the first president on creatine. That's going to get you at least one vote. Whatever you do it with super thick. www.cvmkglobal.store. So let's have a little Bible study. Let's go there. Genesis 1 and 26. Because this is where it all begins, right? And the word says, and God said, I got to say it in my preacher voice, and God said, let us make man, sound like Bishop Nell Ellis, in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and everything or creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image God created he him, male and female created he them. So let's take that as the starting point, the point of Genesis, literally. And let's say this is, and I do believe it is, the start. But the start is never fully flushed out. We see a creation of I was going to say an archaeological marvel, but let's see the creation of a living organism that has obviously purpose and function. But his role is not overly defined. There's a lot of gray area, specific, but not like he should wear blue suits or he should do this or he should get a haircut. There's really no real cage to put him in. I hate to say it like that, but he's just this standalone entity as the true reflection of the master of the universe. This is mankind now. Adam, right, is the face of this that is composed of two beings, or two, I should say, directly polar opposite functioning creatures encompassing one until they're both split and then kind of rejoined. That's a really hard thing to kind of wrap around, right? What is man, Dr. Shepard? And that's a very hard place to start. But in a society that has deemed it negative in some aspects, in opposition to others' progress inherently, which I do not see it as so, what is man to you?
Yeah, so it is a good question. I don't see it as a hard question.
Sure.
What I see it as is us being able to define the role that we were given once God created us on this earth. And I understand why you say it's difficult for some, because there has been a perversion, if you would, as to the role of man and how we're to function on earth. You read the scripture, verse 26, verse 27, about how God created us. Number one, we have to know that we were created. We didn't just pop up. We didn't just come up from the earth. We did not just evolve. The Lord created us. We have to be very clear about that. I did not come from a monkey. I did not come from an ape. I did not come from another animal. The Lord was very distinct when he created me. That is very important to understand as we define what is man. There may be some things that are similar, but I am a human being. And so when you look at that, you also understand that when humans were created to be on this earth, we were given dominion. That means that I am to be the ruler of all that is on the earth. That's very important too, because when you talk about the enemy, who is the prince of the air, we have to allow for him to come into certain situations. Man is powerful. I have to say that again. We don't really understand how powerful we are. There are so many times when I'm working with people in my profession, or even in some friendships, and I try to get people to see you're more powerful than what you really, think you are or know that you are.
Yeah.
And are you sure? I'm like, yes, I'm sure. So when you look at the functionality of man and what was given to man, we are to have dominion over this earth. We give over that power when we allow other people, including the enemy, to make us vulnerable and to allow us to usurp or give over. That's probably the better word, to give over our authority and power to someone else. I'll just start there. That's what I see as man. I'll add this also. When we were created, there are 3 parts to us. And then you can find that in 2 Thessalonians 5:23.
Right.
Spirit, soul, and body.
Right.
That's man. Spirit connects to God. Soul, which actually encompasses your mind. All right, soul and mind, and then your body, which is what we saw here when we were made from the dust of the earth. So that is what I see as man, who we are, the functionality, and what we were given to do.
So you brought up an interesting enclave of points. You mentioned the understanding that our existence outranks every other organism, and our responsibility is to subdue or to manage what has been given unto us. So the first point, to break it up, is, and something I believe is shared, right? Because he created he, them. So this mankind, obviously, we're referring to as both, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're not Adam, not man, but man, Adam and woman, or man, woman, man. That mankind or human is over this, right?
Yes.
The second thing and help us to understand. So we talk about how this individual exists and how this individual engages with their environment and the regions of the soul. And maybe we don't take enough time to appreciate the conflict within the soul, because the conflict or the soul has to receive information and then interpret what is being received, right, in order to give it back into the spirit, right? So let's deal with the soulish man.
Mm-hmm.
What is tearing human beings apart at the soul right now?
That is so key that you ask that question, because this is the struggle that we see right now as to why people are experiencing mental health disorders. Mm-hmm. So when you look at, again, the 3-part nature of man, spirit, soul, and body, there is a war that goes on within those 3 entities within you, if you would. Now, I don't like to use the word entities, but you're made up of three parts. And so you have to know that your body, your flesh, what we see, there is no good thing in your flesh. And the spirit man is what God created us to be like. We are to be in his image. Sure. So it's a war, you know? And so the soul, second part, if you would, is kind of caught in the middle of it. And so there's things that your flesh will want to do that, hey, you know, it feels good, is what I want to do.
Sure.
And the spirit's like, no, we can't do that. But here's what I love about us as human beings. God did not make us robots. He gave us free will. And so he gives us guidance on what to do, on how to be able to handle ourselves. So what am I saying? The soul is a place that really is a tug of war. And so many people battle for that mind. The mind is a battleground. Man, I hope y'all hear me on this. It is the place where we win or we lose before we even do anything in our flesh. Because once you have your mind made up that you're going to do something, it's impossible to stop that person. Guaranteed. I had my mind made up to become a physician. I had my mind made up to take this job where I'm going in DC. There's some things I still have not figured out yet. It's a war. And part of me is like, you don't have what it takes. You can't do it. You have all that stuff filters in, but my mind is made up because I know this is what I am to do. And I'll say this, Cody, I feel really sorry for people. And I'm not coming down on nobody.
Sure.
I feel sorry for people who refuse to allow themselves to be guided by godly principles, by mentors, by people who you know can feed into your soul so that you can overcome that battle that's in the soulish part, as you just described. Because, man, that's the battle. If you can win the battle of the mind, of the soul, you're good. But many people right now, especially, they're like, Shepherd, man. And I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, honestly, and it bothered me because the person just gave up. There is no fight within them. They just gave over the battle for their soul.
Sure.
And they said, I'm good. There's no need for me to do this or do that. And I couldn't even say anything else because it wasn't meant for me to battle them. Right. They're already in the battle for their life. And so, that's why I see so many people in if you were the crosshairs of destruction right now.
Sure. So if the crosshairs of destruction, that being the case, what has empowered you? Because I really think I really think most people, even outside of the faith, have good intent to a point, whatever, though nothing is good. But let's just say to a point, there is some acceptable level of decency that exists within every human being. I truly believe, even in the worst individual, there is still a barometer that can be gauged if that person wanted to submit to it. I think the soul, as you said, if it is the antivirus software for your laptop that filters in all the information, says what can be reviewed, what can't be reviewed. If it keeps getting hammered, eventually it'll break.
Yes.
Right? And I think everybody can be broken. I really think so. Yep. What has prevented breaking for you?
Wow. I had to set up barriers so that I would not be broken. Number one, I understand who my creator is, and I want to serve him. And in order to be able to do that, I have to feed my soul, my spirit man, my soul, so that I can defeat what my flesh wants to do that I know is out of order.
Sure.
So that is one of the biggest barriers. Then number two, I have to understand what environments I work best in. I can't be going into certain places that I know my flesh is just like, hey, oh my God, it's a field day. And so my soul is like, Shepherd, why you bring me up in here? And so just like you just said, you get overwhelmed. So you have to set up barriers in your life and I like the word boundaries more than barriers. Boundaries. So many people, Cody, live outside of boundaries. Shepherd, you can't tell me what to do. Nobody. I live however I want to live. Live without boundaries. And any time that you live a life without boundaries, you're in for a fall. A country even has enough sense to know what its boundaries are, because it defines what that country is. It's able to know what things are off limits and what things are within its reach. We have to live the same way. I also set up barriers and boundaries, if you would, about people who come into my life. I just can't accept every person who wants to be my friend. I can't just accept every friendly compliment or even every job or even every situation, even every engagement, even every invitation to a podcast. I'm learning how to be able to set up boundaries, because if I don't, I'm just free for all. And that's what you see happening right now. And it causes burnout. It causes for people to not know who they are, to be less motivated. And now they're operating on fumes. As we know, fumes are toxic.
Right.
And so we're watching people just burn out, fizzle out right before us.
There's some things I really want to chisel and I want to press, only because it's the boundaries of despotism. I want to go there, but we got bills to pay. Quick word from our sponsor.
Hey, what's up? It's CVMK33. Look, I want you to subscribe, hit the notification bell, subscribe here, everywhere, so you can get the latest and greatest of this podcast content. Stay tuned.
All right, y'all, YouTube, CVMK, literally, it is my initials. You just put on YouTube, CVMK, hit share, the notification bell, see all the great content that is on there and that's coming. So we talk about boundaries, and you talked about, learning to reject opportunities. Some might say, Dr. Shepherd, that's easy because you're a doctor. You are presented with opportunities in whatever area and multiple times a day. People seek you. I don't know how many doctors are actively on LinkedIn applying. I've never heard of doctors being laid off. There's
That's happened.
It happens, but it's not like something where you're like, yeah, they laid off 10,000 doctors a day. There's this disconnect because it feels like, for whatever reason, not to blame or to lessen accountability, but you have been afforded and you've been blessed with the opportunity to say no. And that's powerful, right? To some that are trying to build this thing, and then the what is man, maybe it's the lack of opportunity. We go back into the text, and this is why I'm throwing it up. And I really start thinking about the fall of humanity. Mm-hmm. And I really can't wrap my head around that the serpent's words were that enticing, that literally they risked it all and did. It had to be something so pressing, and even though it was a mixture of lies, that it had to be almost a lack of something, maybe the understanding, and since we do know that she ate first, for Adam man to see that I would be alone again, right? I would have to go back, and maybe in his brain, he thought it would just be me and the father and all the animals, and it would turn into SeaWorld again, right? Like where, and that sounds crass, but there is this, you know what I'm saying? This a bad option is better than no option at all reality. How do you console that person that says, Dr. Shepherd, I'm not you. I don't have, the DC offer, and I accept things that normally I wouldn't accept because it's better than nothing.
And I tell that person that I had to get to the level where I'm at. I didn't start out, I was not born this way. So I reject the notion when people tell me that I'm unable to connect with them because of where I am right now. We all started out the same way. Let's be clear about that. And yes, there may have been some opportunities that were afforded to me that maybe another person did not have. That may be true. But even in that, let me tell you, the higher you go up, the more you need to be able to set up boundaries, because you're at risk for failure, you're at risk for a fall, and more people clamor to you. So I hear that, but a lot of people can't survive up as you go higher because they don't know how to be able to maintain what or at that level once they get up there. See, one of the things I realized, Cody, and again, I'm not coming for anybody out there, is that where I sit now, I had to pass various tests.
Mm-hmm.
I did. And did the test feel good? Absolutely not. Did I fail some of them? You're right. Did I have to repeat some of them? Yes, I did. And so what I want to encourage that person out there is that your life is not to be patterned after mine. No. And we're not to even judge it next to me. I hear you out there. Because there's some opportunities that people, you have to be so careful when people bring opportunities for you to get ahead real quickly or to do some things that you know are not right. Because what it's going to end up doing is going to make you compromise. I am so sick of people compromising, Cody.
Sure.
Man, it's just, it's like, where's your values? Like, what is it? Now, I hear you. Shepherd, I don't have the money. Shepherd, I don't have the notoriety that I want. Well,
Sure.
You know what? Develop your integrity. Develop your tenacity. Develop your perseverance. When I was in medical school, I had to develop all three of those things in order to be able to stand where I am right now and talk as strong as I did. Because let me tell you, I failed. I was almost kicked out of medical school. I had to make some decisions on whether or not I was going to cheat on the exams as I saw my other colleagues do. I sure did. And it was presented to me. And some of them got caught and did not finish. Some of them went on ahead, and some of them I look at right now. Some of them are physicians. They're not happy. It's so interesting to see how you develop as you move down the road when you take these shortcuts. So I hear that plea out there. I want you to know that it's not worth it. Anything that's worth having, you must be able to fight for, you must be able to maintain. And I have not forget where we are with what is man. Because those two persons, Adam and Eve, had it real good.
True.
And communed with God. There must have been one day where they said, you know what? Let me not commune with God as much as I do. And that's what we do. That's what we do with people. We say, I'm good. You know what? I came out this storm, so let me slack off on my prayer life. You know what? Let me stop going to church like as much as I used to. And what we do, we set ourselves up to be vulnerable. That's why Eve and Adam failed, because they allowed themselves to become vulnerable when they were presented with something that they already knew was the end result, and still went ahead and did it. I'll prove this to you. How do I know that they were in communion with God? When God came back into the garden and said, Adam, where art thou?
Right.
He knew where Adam was.
Yeah.
God wasn't searching for him. He had missed his deadline to have his communication with God. And that's why we fail. When we get lax and we get vulnerable, that's when the enemy can come in, whatever it may be, and take us out of here.
Do you think that in the soulish understanding of oneself, right? People are bogged down by perception. I think I said this in my last podcast episode. I think the false narrative of what success looks like, how much of it, if any, I brought up a great point. Is the would you marry a bus driver? Like it's this is a viral clip of Ebony K. Williams. You have to see it, but it has to look like this in order to be true, and that's simply not the case. But I feel like most individuals rather have it look good than actually be good, right? Yeah. Is that truly lying?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And let me tell you what's done it. Social media has allowed for man to put forth this image that he or she is good when it's a false narrative. We have to be careful who controls our narratives, because when you are acting as if you're something that you're not controlling the narrative.
Sure.
You're allowing something else who's not you. You know what? Let me tell you this, Cody, and I'm not sure why I'm going this way. I need to tell people out there as you listen, you're good enough. Stop allowing people to tell you that you got to be something that you're not. When Adam and Eve were in that garden, they didn't even realize how good they had it until they got kicked out. And let me tell you, people have been fighting since they've been kicked out to actually, in my way, I look at how Adam's anger and Adam's way of handling things when he got kicked out, that it started to display out in his children.
Yeah.
His firstborn had an anger issue, jealousy, envy. All this stuff is all up inside of us. And we'll do anything to mask it. We'll try to let people know, oh, that ain't me, And then, I won't stay there too long. We look for people who have what we consider success. Well, I got to marry so-and-so because if she don't have this, if she don't have, a certain well-paying job and got a house and this and that, and her body, is banging like man. And so you see all these different perceptions out there, man, and it has distorted who we are and what we should be looking for. And I just want to tell people, you don't have to do all that. You're good enough, you're pretty enough, you're handsome enough as the creation that God has made you.
Sure.
So all the filters, I mean, we can stay there. I've never seen so many filters.
Yeah, Snapchat filter is real.
I mean, my skin could be as clear as glass. I know it ain't as clear as glass. I got a shiny forehead. That's about it. But but it just really psychologically, it really messes with people's minds when they're trying to aim for something that's a false narrative. And when you're aiming for something that's false, you're going to be disappointed every single time.
False narratives are, let me do my William F. Buckley impersonation. False narratives are a part of the human story. I really feel that chasing something is because something else is driving you. And I feel like most people who chase hard are driven by pain, right? Good or bad. I feel like pain motivates more than feelings of happiness. And anytime I've heard anybody achieve anything great, they're usually running away from something instead of running towards something, right? So a broken person chasing after a complete dream is, to me, a dangerous collision ready to happen. Right? And I think a lot of people, even in ministry, this is here, don't realize how far they're not. Right? I think there's this assumption that, we have the Lord, we have His Holy Spirit. I'm good. I gave my life to the Lord, raised my right hand, took the right hand of fellowship. I'm good. I listened to Hillsong. I'm good. I got Tasha Cobb. I'm good. And I don't even feel like that's the tip of the iceberg. That's like a real, starting point. The true rottedness, the rottingness of every human being is present, but it's that person that we're not allowed to be, or we're not allowed to discuss. It's like, we just keep, it hidden away. And until it is fully flushed out, I don't think you can improve humanity. You can mask it. You can put you put lipstick on a pig, but it's never going to correct the way you want it to, because we won't discuss it, right? So the soulish person, we go back to the soul, right? As we tie it back in, Adam, we're still in Genesis 1-2. The fall happens, right? Now, the soulless person says, God, it's the woman you gave me, right? Like forget responsibility. Forget what you told me. God, it's her. The reason why I didn't do right is because this chick over here, was talking to the snake, and, I fell for it. And, it was either that or the monkey, and I chose her. So I feel like, it was just a bad look overall. Yeah. Can we get leaders, or even just organizations as a whole, to really unpack the ugliness, the raw, soulish, oniony individual?
Yeah, and we can. That's where I am even in ministry right now.
Sure.
Because I got tired of being a part of ministries that were superficial and only dealt with those layers that I could see on the outside. There are ministries, Cody, and I am glad to be a part of one that goes beyond the mask and what I allow people to see. Because what happens is, when you stay in places that only feed you there, you get burned out and your appetite is gone. And I got so worn out because nothing was feeding me in the inner man. Let me tell you, even though we got all this stuff happening, I hope people can hear me on this. There is a hunger inside for people to really know who they are and to do better. I know that because even when I deal with some of the hardest adolescents, and I mean, they're mean, I can break through if I find something, a thread where I can see the little crack, and if you're looking to say, hey, I hear you. I identify with you. I understand your soulish issue. But what the problem is, Cody, people won't be vulnerable. I'm sick and tired of pastors, leaders, all these people who portray something, and we know that that's not the real deal. And that's why we see people get caught up in scandals. That's why we see people get caught up in various things, because that other side of it is coming out and they haven't dealt with that issue that's inside of them. I just told somebody today when I was in practice, when you're in crises, the issues that you have not dealt with will surface every time. It will come up. And unless you get healed from that. See, Adam allowed himself to go. I wonder what would have happened if he had just been honest with God and said, you know what? I should not have done that.
Yeah.
God is a forgiving God. I wonder if there would have been a different consequence. But just how we do, we pass the buck. It was so-and-so. And we don't own up. That's one of the first things I learned in medicine. Shepherd, when you make a mistake, and I even had to own up to a mistake I made today with a family. I had to say that was my fault. It don't feel good, but when I did it, it earned my respect. It earned their respect of me. Let me say it like that. And I wonder if the same thing happens if we would try that. If Adam had tried that, if we just own up to what we deal with, be vulnerable, and then after you be vulnerable, get the right help. Stop sending for these people who don't know. They just as messed up as you are. You can't have broken people causing more brokenness. That hurts. So we want to make sure that, and I thank you for these questions because it gets down to the deep rooted issues. If your church or your organization, even your job is not dealing with the deep rooted issues of people, I hate to say it, you're not being fulfilled. And there is only going to be a certain level that you will achieve unless you get beyond and handle those deep rooted issues.
I agree. And thank you so much for being on here. Got a couple things I want to, before I cut to my last break. What does wholeness look like? Because if the reality is the broken apparatus cannot serve you, but you've never seen what a whole one looks like, how could you distinguish between the two? You don't know, right? Right. What does the healed man look like?
That is so good, because I attribute wholeness to a journey. It is not just a destination. Wholeness is a journey. I hope y'all hear me on this. Wholeness is something that you achieve every single day, that you wake up and say, I want to do better. When you wake up and you say, I am not going to do this today, I'm just going to live average, that's not wholeness. Sure. The word talks about how we are to be perfecting or even living a life of salvation, where we may make mistakes, but we have to be, like I've said earlier, be repentive and own up to our mistakes and ask for forgiveness. So when you ask that question about what wholeness looks like, it's a destination where I'm honest with myself. I take care of my needs. I am not just selfish, but I'm other self-centered. That means I look out for the needs of other people. I'm not self-centered. I'm looking to see how I can serve other people. I'm collaborative. I have a joy that when things even happen to me, that I don't allow for those things to dictate how I'm going to operate for the rest of my life. It is so many different things wrapped up, Cody. I just want people to understand that it is a destination. Stop trying to say, well, I want to wait till I get everything together to be whole. Sure. You'll never arrive there, because on this earth, you're going to hit various different potholes, but God wants to see how you're going to respond to them. And that's how you know that you're whole, because you're not going to respond to them the same way in which you were. I'll say this and I'm ending.
Sure.
If your defaults have not changed since you gave your life to God, you're not whole.
That's a lot right there to unpack. I'm gonna deal with that on my final word. But just gotta cut to sponsors and pay these bills.
I literally just tried the best pre-workout on the planet. With Superpower pre-workout, you have increased focus and a power boost every single time you work out. It's not only packed with 225 milligrams of caffeine, but it also has citrulline and creatine. It's insane how much energy and focus I had during my workouts. If you're ready to take your workouts to the next level, then ditch your current pre-workout and get the Superpower pre-workout to be your own hero.
All right, y'all, www.cvnkglobal.store. I want you to get super thick, because I want you to get there, and I want you to optimize so we can pray for other stuff that, you know, doesn't need a gym membership, right? Let's move beyond the hot dogs and chips. Let's get you there. It's www.cvnkglobal.store so we can get back to some real praying. I want to focus on this last thought, and then, want everybody to know where to connect with you. So you brought up, if your defaults have not changed. So let's say my defaults are the breaker switches to my home. I know these new smart homes may not have a breaker, but those a little bit older remember what the breaker looked like. It was in the basement. It was next to the furnace, and it was this gray box that powered the whole house. Every single thing that was plugged in, the main source of energy was from this breaker pilot. And when a storm would arise, they would say, turn off everything and then turn it back on. Yeah. The problem, I think, and I think you hit upon it, is we only turn off the breakers when the storm arrives. And then when everything seems normal again, we go back to the default. And therefore, we really never make true transformative change. We just power up to keep going.
Yep.
And we've confused power with transformation.
Wow.
Right. And a lot of the brokenness and the decay, and however you want to categorize it, hate or whatever you want to label it as, is because the breakers are still running. Versus, I think, a home that is built on or powered by the sun. That the sun can only, those little things on roofs, it has to receive the energy from it, and then it stores it, but every day it has to keep going and getting more and more, and it only keeps enough for that day, so it keeps getting more and more, but it never burns out because sufficient is the day, right? I think our problem is, and you can, as the subject matter guru on this, we have traded in true healing for true horsepower. And we want a car that can go fast and sound good, but we can't afford the gasoline, and it's killing the environment. And the reality is, maybe God wants you to take the train.
Yes.
And that's hard because the train isn't cool. It's crowded. It's with people. You have to share a space. Right. You have to collaborate. You have to be on time. You can get left behind. You can't go at your own whim, Right. But we want the 500 power Hemi horsepower car. I'll leave it to you. You give it your final word and tell us where you can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for putting that out there. I will say this. It is not true power unless you're transformed, because transformation requires power. So I would say what they're dealing with is on a little battery. You're on AA, and I'm already done past you. I'm on D. So you have your horsepower, thank you. That was good. Also, I'll say this about the train. The train is a little bit slower, possibly, but all those different things that you just talked about will help you to maintain, because I'm tired of seeing people survive and not thrive. And that is the mentality that we see in our world today. That man talks about grinding, talks about surviving. I don't want to hear about another survival story, Corbin. I want to hear about people thriving, because that is what God called us to do, not to survive, but to thrive. If you want to thrive, come on over and meet me, drjonathanshepard.com. You can go to my website, drjonathanshepard.com. We're in the midst of renovating my website. If you want to reach out to me for direct care services, jshep2471 at gmail.com. Maybe my website, you should be able to connect with me through there. And I do a radio show each Saturday morning, afternoon, actually, maybe morning, wherever you are at, on the East Coast, 1 o'clock p.m., called Spirit in Mind with Bishop Seaguy Robinson. So you can hit me up on there. I enjoy this show. Thank you, Cody. Wow. This is wonderful, and love the platform.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Y'all connect with Dr. Shepard. Hit him up on the ground. Follow him. He does amazing work. Listen to the show. Hopefully one day they'll have me back on. I've been working on my prayer language. So I feel like, I'm a bit more tamed, CVMK show is a little bit more tamed because it is what it is. Buck wild, but I'm still the same guy. So, what you want to do, I want to keep seeing Amazing Podcast, YouTube, CVMK, Instagram, It is what it is _show, CVMK _global, and CVMK33. And I've always, y'all, got to reiterate, I want you to get there. I brought away, it's worn just because this is the one that actually goes to the gym with me. When I'm in the gym, you see them photos, that's the creatine flowing through my veins. Super thick, only at www.cvmkglobal.store. And until next time, guys.